What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. Up next is the Kentucky Wildcats. Of course, Kentucky coming off a pretty disappointing year last year. They were just 4-8, so yeah, I don't think anybody expected Kentucky to go 4-8 last year, especially how this program has been under Mark Stoops. They are usually a team that makes it to a bowl game, and they had a bowl game, like a streak and everything, making it to a bowl game almost every year, kind of since 2016, but that streak did come down to an end for Kentucky last year in 2024. Can they turn things around in 2025? Is Mark Stoops on the hot seat? Well, I don't really know the question to that answer, and as a Kentucky fan myself, I do want to see Kentucky have a better season, but I have to be real with this team. Offensively, you got a ton of question marks, and that goes for the same for the defense. A lot of people think Kentucky is going to be the worst team in the SEC this year, that they might be back to their old ways, being the worst team in the SEC like they used to be, but you got Zach Cazelda coming in to transfer at the FCS level. I don't really know how good he's going to be for this Kentucky offense, but if he can be consistent, this Kentucky team I think will be very good. If he does not turn out to be very good, this Kentucky team will become inconsistent on the offensive side of the football, like how it was last year with Brock Vandergriff at quarterback. Defensively, they lost some good players there on this defense, so yeah, a lot of question marks for this Kentucky team. And again, I am a Kentucky fan. I have to be real with this team. I'm not really quite as high on this Kentucky team as really a bunch of other Kentucky fans are. And again, I have to be real with this prediction. I really want to see Kentucky succeed in 2025, but it's a pretty tough schedule for Kentucky once again. It's pretty similar to last year, but except they're playing the teams that they played last year at home, they're playing them on the road, and then the teams that they played on the road last year, they will play them at home. But again, Kentucky, they were 4-8 last year in 2024, so let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this Kentucky team for 2025. They'll start things off with Toledo on August 30th. I don't think this will be an easy game here for Kentucky. You look at this Toledo team, they're actually a pretty good group of 5 teams, so I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a little bit of a sluggish game here for Kentucky to kick off the year. I mean, obviously you got these new faces like kicking off the season, so you don't really know much about them, and we'll see what Zach Cazelda does look like in this game. Toledo, though, I think will surprise in this game. They'll probably give Kentucky a little bit of a pretty tough test here. I think it's probably going to be mainly in the first half, and then I think Kentucky will probably pull away in the second half, but it won't be a blowout. I think Kentucky will just win by a couple of touchdowns, and I think Kentucky will start off the season 1-0, but this is where it kind of gets tougher, except for Eastern Michigan the next week. After this, though, they'll play Ole Miss at home on September the 6th. Actually, Kentucky beat Ole Miss last year on the road in Oxford, Mississippi last season. Yeah, that was definitely a big, tremendous surprise there from last year. And then obviously that kind of ruined Ole Miss's playoff hopes. Florida did ruin Ole Miss's playoff hopes, but early in the season, Kentucky, we thought they were going to be really good. Especially after the loss to Georgia last year, they go on the road and beat Ole Miss, a top 25 team. Well, for the rest of the way, Kentucky was not really that great of a team, and we thought Kentucky was definitely going to turn things around, but they obviously did not look good the rest of the way. You look at this Ole Miss team, they also have some question marks on the defensive side of the football, so this game might be really a big shootout here. Kentucky is probably going to slow the game down and run the football in this one, but I don't think it will be enough. I do trust Lane Kiffin in shootouts here. This is a game that Kentucky can win, but I just think the talent of this Ole Miss team is still there, and I think it's a little bit of a more talented roster than Kentucky is. So yeah, I think Ole Miss does win a close one here. Again, it's a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised if Kentucky beat Ole Miss for the second straight year in a row, though. But I got to go with the Rebels in that one. So that's going to drop Kentucky to 1-1. Then they take care of Eastern Michigan. I do expect a blowout here in this one. Not really compared to the Toledo game. I think this will be a 3-touchdown win for Kentucky. So that's going to put them at 2-1. And then they get their first bye week of the season before playing at South Carolina on September 27th. This is a game that was not really close last year. South Carolina really came out of nowhere and just dominated Kentucky. Kentucky, especially on the defensive side of the football. And then offensively, you got a dangerous quarterback on the North Sellers running the football right at you if you're the Kentucky defense. And again, this is a brand new Kentucky team. You know, Kentucky is going to have a lot of transfers on the defensive side of the football that are probably not used to each other. Yeah, they are 3 games in, but this will be their really first true road test as well. And that's a tough place to play. I think South Carolina is the better team here. I'm going with the Gamecocks here to get the win. Yeah, there's been pretty good matchups here between Kentucky and South Carolina in the past, but last year was just not really the case. I think it probably will be a closer game than last year, but still, I think South Carolina probably does pull away sometime in the fourth quarter, and they win this one by 10 to 13 points. So that's going to drop Kentucky now to 2-2, and then they play Georgia on the road. So they got back-to-back road games here with South Carolina and Georgia. They get their first bye week before the South Carolina game instead of like before the Georgia game. You rather have the bye week in between South Carolina and Georgia, but they will play Georgia the next week. And I just think Kentucky is going to come into this game not really expecting to win this one. And yeah, they were competitive against Georgia last year. They lost to them by 1 point. I feel like that game was a fluke. I feel like Georgia will be ready for Kentucky this time. They will shut them down on the defensive side of the football. And I also think Kentucky will be a little bit beat up, especially after playing a tough game against South Carolina last week. And so I think Georgia wins this one pretty big. I got Kentucky losing that one in a blowout, and that's going to put them now at 2-3. And then they get their second bye week before playing Texas at home on October 18th. So, yeah, they have it like, you know, their bye weeks in a very strange time. They got one here before the last weekend in the month of September. And then they got another one here in the month of October before playing Texas. And then the final way they have to play all the rest of their games in the last weekend, or the last 2 weekends of the month of October. And then they have to play every game in the month of November. Texas game, I don't really expect this one to be all that close. You got Arch Manning taking over at quarterback, obviously. And I just think this is going to be a pretty dangerous Texas team to stop for Kentucky. And yeah, Kentucky does get a bye week. They get some time to recover after those back-to-back road games. But I don't think the bye week is going to really help out that much for the Wildcats. And so I think Texas does beat Kentucky here. Again, pretty similar to the Georgia game. I think it will be a blowout. I'm going to say that Kentucky gets beat by a couple of touchdowns, or maybe like more than that, like 14 to 17 points. So I got Kentucky now dropping to 2-4. Then they play Tennessee at home on October 25th, of course, a rivalry game. I think Kentucky will be competitive in this one because of the rivalry and everything. You know, Tennessee is a team that definitely has some question marks, especially on the offensive side of the football. But it is a Josh Heupel offense, and we know how trouble that Kentucky has had against this Josh Heupel offense in the past. Tennessee might be really good at running the football, but passing the football, they're going to have to get that situated. And then obviously they got a transfer quarterback as well. So this is a battle of transfer quarterbacks, but I think Tennessee, I do trust Josh Heupel to kind of get it done here. This game probably could turn into a, you know, low-scoring, running, you know, kind of game, and then also a shootout. But I'm going to actually say that Tennessee gets the win here. And I don't really like Tennessee a bunch as a Kentucky fan myself, really outside of these videos. But I'm going to have to be honest. Again, I'm going to go with Tennessee here to get the win, and that's going to drop Kentucky now to 2-5. Then it's on the road at Auburn on November 1st. Very tough place to play. This is a game that I actually could probably see going either way here. You know, Auburn obviously going to have a bunch of guys in the transfer portal as well. They add in Jackson Arnold at quarterback, of course. So yeah, this might be turning into a shootout, but I think for Kentucky, they want to waste the clock down and keep this a low-scoring game as possible, and they want to slow the game down. But I think on the road at Jordan-Hare, that's just too much here for Kentucky, and I think Auburn actually does pull it out. So I'm going to say that Auburn beats Kentucky here in a close game. So that's going to now drop Kentucky to 2-6. They have to win their last, you know, 4 games in order to get to a bowl game, at least to 6-6. But then they play Florida after that here on November 8th. Florida, obviously a team with getting a lot of hype this year in 2025 as possibly being a top 25 team, and then also a playoff team. I don't want to go too far with Florida there, but yeah, this is a Florida team. DJ Lagway is back at quarterback, and Florida blew out Kentucky last year in the Swamp. This year it's in Lexington. I think the crowd will kind of be fired up for this one because of the rivalry. Again, Kentucky is sitting here at 2-6, so maybe it's not a fired up crowd, but yeah, Florida, I think they'll be competitive here in this one. I don't think it will be enough. I do trust DJ Lagway here to make the plays in the game, and I think the Gators do actually pull it out, so I'm going with Florida in that game. But I got Kentucky beating Tennessee Tech, and that's going to put them at 3-7, and then they play at Vanderbilt on November 22nd, but no bowl game here for Kentucky. Forgot to mention that as well. So maybe Mark Stoops is fired by this point. But you got Vanderbilt here the next week on November 22nd. Obviously, the game last year against Vanderbilt really did surprise me, and Vanderbilt was a surprise team in 2025. They once again could be a surprise team in 2025. I meant to say 2024. But yeah, Vanderbilt, they're a team that's going to be pretty dangerous at running the football. Diego Pavia gave Kentucky's defense all kinds of problems last year. I think he does that again. And I think also Cedric Alexander, him running the football is so dangerous as well. And yeah, I think Vanderbilt's running game could be the difference. I think this is a lower scoring game, but I'm going to go with Vanderbilt here to get the win. So yeah, Kentucky now drops to 3-8. Going into the final game of the season on the road here at Louisville on November 29th. Obviously, as a Kentucky fan, this is a game that I circle on my calendar every year. Look forward to the Governor's Cup football rivalry matchup. But this year, I don't think Kentucky is going to be really competitive. I don't know if I see this being a close game at all. I mean, it is a rivalry game. Anything is possible. And obviously, Kentucky has really dominated the series as of late. Louisville won it last year, though, and I do expect Louisville to win it again this season. So, yeah, I don't really like Louisville as a Kentucky fan, but I got to be honest here again. Just like the Tennessee and Florida games, I have to be honest with these predictions. So, I think Kentucky will lose to Louisville here in a pretty close game in the final game of the season, and I got this team finishing 3-9. So, as a Kentucky fan myself, I don't want to see Kentucky go 3-9, but again, it's my honest prediction here on this Kentucky football team. I can definitely see them winning a couple of games in the SEC. I think the best possible chance to win a couple of games is probably against Ole Miss and Florida. Those are probably their two biggest, potential wins here on the home schedule. And then on the road, that's going to be really tough here for them to get a win somewhere. They could probably beat Vanderbilt and possibly go like 3-5 in SEC play, and then obviously go 2-6 if they were just to win a couple of games. But I got this team actually going winless in the SEC. Again, a very tough schedule. 4-8 is probably possible like it was last year, and then also maybe 5-7. I don't know if this team can make it to a bowl game, though, because of how tough this schedule is. So that's my prediction for Kentucky for 2025. Give me your prediction for Kentucky down in the comments below, and do you agree or disagree with this prediction? Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content and videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.